Welcome back to USA News, your go-to source for the biggest stories and breaking updates from across the United States. If you want to stay ahead of the news, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Let's dive straight into today's top story. The rise and fall of the Maestro, how Alan Greenspan went from economic genius to financial crisis scapegoat. For nearly 2 decades, one man stood at the center of the American economy. His words could move global markets. Investors analyzed every sentence he spoke. World leaders sought his guidance. To many, Alan Greenspan wasn't just the chairman of the Federal Reserve, he was known simply as the Maestro. But years after leaving office, the man once praised as an economic genius would face a very different legacy. Today, we're looking back at the remarkable rise, extraordinary influence, and controversial downfall of one of the most powerful figures in modern financial history. Before becoming a household name, Greenspan was a quiet kid growing up in Manhattan's Washington Heights neighborhood. A gifted math student, he even pursued music professionally, playing saxophone and clarinet alongside future jazz legend Stan Getz. But economics would ultimately become his calling. After studying at New York University and building a successful consulting business, Greenspan entered political and economic circles. His reputation for analytical brilliance eventually caught the attention of President Ronald Reagan, who appointed him Federal Reserve Chairman in 1987. Almost immediately, Greenspan faced a massive challenge. Just 2 months into his tenure, Wall Street suffered Black Monday, the worst one-day stock market crash in U.S. history. Panic swept through financial markets. Investors feared economic disaster. Greenspan acted quickly. He reassured markets that the Federal Reserve would provide liquidity and support. Confidence gradually returned, and the economy avoided a major collapse. That moment transformed Greenspan into a financial superstar. Over the next several years, he became one of the most influential economic figures on earth. During his leadership, the United States experienced a decade-long economic expansion. Unemployment fell. Inflation remained remarkably low. Technology companies fueled explosive growth. Many Americans believed Greenspan had discovered the secret formula for endless prosperity. His influence became so legendary that Wall Street analysts even developed what became known as the briefcase indicator. If Greenspan arrived at a meeting carrying a thick briefcase, investors speculated major policy changes could be coming. His comments alone could send markets soaring or tumbling. One of his most famous warnings came in 1996, when he used just 2 words: irrational exuberance. The phrase immediately shook investors and became one of the most famous quotes in financial history. But behind the admiration, a dangerous risk was quietly growing. Greenspan strongly believed that financial institutions could largely regulate themselves. He supported a lighter regulatory approach and opposed greater federal oversight of complex financial products known as derivatives. At the time, many viewed these policies as modern and innovative. Years later, critics would see them very differently. After Greenspan retired in 2006, America's housing market began to crack. What started as a slowdown quickly spiraled into a devastating collapse. Home values plunged. Banks suffered enormous losses. Millions of Americans lost their homes to foreclosure. The financial crisis exploded across the globe, triggering the Great Recession and becoming the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. As families struggled and businesses failed, attention turned back to Greenspan's years at the Federal Reserve. Critics argued that prolonged low interest rates had fueled a dangerous housing bubble. Others claimed that weak oversight allowed financial institutions to take reckless risks hidden from regulators. Perhaps the most dramatic moment came when Greenspan himself acknowledged a flaw in his thinking. He admitted that he had made a mistake in believing major financial institutions could effectively regulate themselves. For many observers, it was a stunning confession from a man once viewed as nearly infallible. Public reaction remains divided even today. Supporters argue that Greenspan guided America through multiple crises and helped oversee one of the strongest economic expansions in modern history. Critics contend that the policies championed during his tenure laid the groundwork for one of the most destructive financial disasters ever experienced. No matter where the debate lands, Alan Greenspan's story remains one of the most fascinating chapters in economic history. A man once celebrated as the architect of prosperity ultimately became a symbol of the dangers of unchecked financial risk. His legacy serves as a reminder that even the world's most respected experts can make decisions whose consequences are felt for generations. And decades later, the debate over Alan Greenspan and the true cost of his policies continues.